I wanted to tell you a story. I almost told it in worship.
Yeah.
And then
you didn't.
And then I didn't. So, but I'm going to tell you now.
Good.
Normally, when you tell a story about someone, you ask their permission first. And I feel the need to preface, I have not done so. However, this only paints this person in a positive light, so I'm just going to go with it.
I assume that's good.
Okay. So, back before I was ordained, before I even served as a pastor, when I was here as the youth director, I finished my first semester of seminary, and I decided to quit. Yep. This is an ongoing theme in my life where I'm like, no, I'm not doing this anymore. And Marlon Finn was the senior pastor here, and he had been super encouraging. When I came to him, I was like, in fact, it was on Halloween in 2013.
All Hallows Eve.
Yes. And I was like, hey, I feel like maybe I'm being called to be a pastor. And he's like, yeah, just waiting for you to come tell me. I was like, okay, cool. So, he had he got me the little book that you had to read and helped me get signed up for everything. Anyway, so I come back from my first semester of seminary and I'm like, this is terrible. Why are we doing this? And he was like, yeah, that sounds really hard. Yeah, just super encouraging, like Marlon is. Just listening, right? Yeah. And I was like, I just don't think I'm going to keep going. I've already signed up for classes and stuff, but I don't know. It's a lot of work, and I just don't want to. And he was like, no, that makes sense. Just take the Christmas break and think about it for a little bit. Mm-hmm. And then the next day, he's like, hey, the associate pastor is going to be out this Sunday. Could you help in worship? And I was like, sure, which is a not totally abnormal thing. So I helped in worship, and it just so happened that day was a baptism. Mm-hmm. He knew that.
He's sneaky.
He sneakied in there. And so I got to go down to the font and help. I mean, I said some of the lead up stuff. I didn't actually, obviously didn't baptize the baby, but got to participate in it right up front. Mm-hmm. And I'm weeping by the end. And I was like, okay, I'll go back to seminary. And I swear, if he could, Marlon would just just done a little evil villain laughter, because I 100% believe he knew what if he just gave me a chance to try, that I would be like, oh yeah. He had me preach a few times, which was risky of him. He took a chance, but it was good. Yeah. Sometimes in order to know something, you have to try it. So anyway, I just felt like you needed to know that story.
That's a good story, and it sounds very like Marlon Finn to do it in that way. Yeah. Where you had to discover it, but he...
Yeah. He's definitely sort of creating the environment there.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's cool.
Do you have a bunch of little markers along your... They sort of famously call it the call story. Yeah. Which is sort of silly, but I get it. Yeah. But do you have some moments that jump out?
Yeah, I mean, so one that I think I've told in our church before is I can remember distinctly where I was when I was in college. I was really struggling with if I should. I didn't even know what I was feeling called to, other than maybe working in the church, but just sort of struggling, thinking about not only my own pastors, but then other well-known pastors who are great preachers, and just thinking I can't be them. I can't do them. I can't do. And having this epiphany on the Science and Education building on the University of Arkansas campus, on the orange floor. And the reason it's orange is because every floor had a different color of tile, and this one was orange. Okay. Tennessee orange, not Texas orange, just for any folks out there. Okay. Wondering the shade of orange here.
Yeah, I was invested.
I know. And I remember hearing, and it's I knew this, but it was the first time it clicked. Mark, I'm not calling you to be them, I'm calling you to be you. Mm-hmm. And that's who I want to go. That's who I'm calling in the ministry. Mm-hmm. and I had to, and it, it felt like the Holy Spirit speaking. It felt like the assurance that I needed of you have the gifts and graces for what I want you to do.
Yeah.
Not to be someone else.
Yeah.
And who you are is what I'm asking to come into this call that I'm inviting you into. So that's probably like the one that's like sticks out. But there's, as you mean, there's a lot of iterations, there's a lot of things in between all that, a lot of people, also in my life who needed to tell me, and I needed to hear it from them that I think this may be something you should be considering. So a long journey, but that's probably the one that like really sticks out to me as something I had to hear myself and own myself. Yeah. For sure.
I mean, I think that makes sense. And that's exactly what we talked about on Sunday, about living into who you are and bringing all of that to bear as a gift and an offering to your church, to your family, to your community, to the world, to see what God will do with it. So let's talk about it some more. Ooh, 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 ooh. I'm leaving that in. Well, I'm Becca. I'm the pastor of Family Ministries here at Katy First.
And I'm Mark. I'm the senior pastor here at Katy First.
Welcome to the Katy First Family Podcast, where we offer ideas, inspiration, and encouragement to help your family grow as joyful disciples of Jesus Christ. This week, we are continuing in our For the Love series with For the Love of One Another.
Yes.
Yep, it happened.
And you preached.
I did.
So I'm looking forward to you giving a recap of what you talked about.
I mean, it's a really good Sunday.
The whole Sunday was Children's Sabbath.
Yeah.
Yeah, really wonderful Sunday.
I really felt like it didn't need a sermon. It was so lived out in front of us, what we were talking about. But what we were talking about is from 1 Peter about chapter 4, verses 8 through 11. I said it creepily. I wonder how that's going to sound on the podcast. Very ASMR. We talked about how we're called to be stewards of the gifts that we're given. Yeah. And what that really means is not, I think often we talk about stewardship and gifts as being like monetary gifts. And I don't want to undersell that. For sure that involves our monetary gifts. But really that scripture is talking about the gifts and graces God has given each of us. The things that we're good at, for kind of just a lack of a better way of saying it. The things that make us come alive, that light us up, the things that we uniquely are each called to bring to bear in ministry. And I think like in worship, we saw that with the children and the way that they participated in the service, or not participated, led the service. And I think too, just highlighting Alberto as an amazing volunteer, but like also, I think he could have been a stand-in for any number of people in the life of this church and in the broader community that have made a massive difference simply by saying, this is the thing that I love. This is something I'm going to faithfully offer it for the good of other people, for the love of others. Yeah. And, it's a hard thing, I think, because before Sunday, I talked to a couple of people and was like, I think sometimes when we say, hey, I'm good at XYZ, then we feel like that's sort of like bragging or like we're supposed to be more humble about things. And then it becomes like a false humility where it's just self-deprecating. Like you actually are really good at that. And we need you to know that and live into it because we need those gifts. And also like not trying to be somebody else. I mean, kind of like you were saying at the start of the podcast, like you can't do the things you're called to do by pretending to be somebody else. And I talked about how when I first started as a pastor, I told people to call me Rebecca. Yep. But really, I'm just Becca, and that involves lots of good things and things also that I know I'm not good at, and that's okay. It was really funny. I talked about not being good at math. Mostly from a desire to be like, listen guys, it's okay to not be good at stuff, but like I'm good at these other things. And after worship, one of our third graders came and, fourth grader. Oh, she'd be very upset with me. One of our fourth graders came up and gave me, on the back of her All Saints Sunday handout from her bulletin, she had written the 7 times table. So like their multiplication chart, written it out for me so that at a glance I could see like what 7 times whatever is. She went all the way up to 12.
Which is impressive.
It's very impressive. It's just, I mean, she clearly is good at math and wanted to help me out. Look at her already bringing her gifts to bear.
Love it.
For the love of one another. I just thought like that was my favorite. That is like one of my top 5 favorite things that's ever happened with a kiddo in worship. So
yeah,
it was great. It's a weird thing to talk about, mostly because, like I said, I think we can get sort of like a weird complex about bringing our gifts forward. We can either do it to exhaustion, right? So then it becomes a way to be self-sacrificing, not sacrificial love, but like just self-sacrificing, right? Yeah. I pour out until I have nothing left. Yeah. Or we don't bring it to bear because we're like, well, but I could never, or I'm not really good at that. I think part of the goodness of God is telling us, hey, actually you are good at that. Like listening to that voice that says this thing that you love to do, that you're like, you do want to bring that to bear in the life of not just your family or your church, but in the broader community. Yeah. And our particular gifts match a particular need. Yeah. And so we want to be able to fill those spaces. Yeah.
Well, you said a couple of things that stuck out to me. One, you said this is really, I don't know if you said 2 sermons or just 2 messages at the same time, but you have to have them at the same time. Yeah. Because it was a sermon on self-love or self-care. And as you said, not like getting a massage or having your, rest time or something. All good. Right. But loving who God has made you to be, and there is that process of learning who that's not, and like being good with that, and really embracing, and that just takes time, right? Yeah. And like that, we don't get a script, we don't get a player card that says Becca Newcomb, gifts, strengths, weaknesses, superpower. Right. That'd be nice. Yeah.
Like from Jumanji?
Yeah, that was exactly what I was thinking of.
Where
Jumanji.
They like tap and like a little thing appears on the screen.
Where, what is it that Kevin Hart's character?
Cake.
Yeah.
Cake. Yeah. His weakness is cake. He just like dies.
So the like trial and error of self-love. How did we get it?
I don't know, but I love that we went to Jumanji at the same time.
I love Jumanji.
It's a great movie. They're both great movies.
But that is intricately connected to a sense of purpose, in that loving yourself also means in some way of giving away yourself, but not instead. Like that is connected to the serving of others. And that verse does such just weaves together all these ideas of stewardship, of grace, of self-love, of love of one another in such like a compact way. I just feel like that was such an important thing to sort of acknowledge. This is really 2 messages, but we couldn't pull these apart. Right. I might be able to say them, but they're always connected. Yeah. Yeah. And how that process of learning who I'm not is really valuable, important, if not a little hard, but it's part of that process for sure.
One of the things I didn't say that I wish I said, which happens every time I think anybody preaches, is I think I because I made it funny to talk about how bad I am at math, I don't think I said loud enough the things that I know I'm good at. And the only reason I say that is sometimes because I think we hide behind this sense of like it's bragging or it's rude to be so bold with what we're good at. I wish I'd sort of modeled it. And I wonder too, even if like I was subconsciously doing the thing I was saying not to do, I'm very aware of the things I'm not good at, but I can organize something like I will color code that thing within an inch of its life. And that is a definitely something that's helpful for people, right?
Yeah.
Or I genuinely love talking with kids and youth about really complex theological issues in a way that makes sense for them. Not just developmentally, but like even just language-wise, right? I'm always surprised at when people are like, I don't know how I talk about this with my, fourth grader or whatever. Just, it makes sense. But I'm always surprised that I'm like, oh, but I know how I would do it. And maybe that's still, everything is a growing edge. But like, I think that being able to say, like Alberto did, just to use him as an example, hey, I can show up for, it was originally 3 and 4 year olds in a Sunday school classroom. And when I'm not there, I'll still show them I love them by sending them postcards. I mean, come on. I can love kids. I can care about kids.
Yeah.
It's definitely a gift. You got to have some patience, some commitment, some time that you're willing to make available. But I think that piece of like owning the things you're good at, owning the things that you're good at in a way that turns them into gifts to offer, is tricky. It can be really difficult.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Listen, I only have my own experience. I feel like it might be harder for women than men. How do you feel about that? I totally just sprang that on you.
In like being able to name your strengths.
Yeah, so I feel like women are sometimes like conditioned not to say things they're good at.
Yeah.
Or to be a little more deprecating than men are.
Well,
than men are trained to be.
Yeah.
What?
I can't disagree. That probably is. I all I can say is I connect with that sentiment though. Like,
yeah.
I think in general there maybe still is, or maybe used to be, a sense of like harmful humility that was really just a devaluing of self. Because I remember growing up struggling, like I wanted to be humble, but also felt weird about like being confident in certain things, or so I think that, and I don't know if we can maybe blame that on Christianity. We can maybe blame that on just, maybe that's part of development. I don't know. Maybe I don't know. There's a lot of things, but I think that probably could be true. That
I don't know that it's like a church thing. I think it's way more. It's larger than that. It's societal. I think it to some extent comes from people devaluing children in general, and so then you're raised with it. Then it just becomes the norm. So like, hush, you're not that good at that kind of thing. Does that make sense? Not on purpose, but I don't know. I'm sure other people who have actual degrees and like study and that would have a lot better things to say about it. The only reason I bring it up is because I think it's important for us to like maybe recognize that in ourselves. Oh, it may not be that I actually don't think I'm good at this. It may just be that this is a message I've gotten from somewhere else. And it doesn't even necessarily matter where that message is from. If it's loud enough, if it's pervasive enough, you need to be able to cut through it to hear the things you are good at, and things you are, gifted to bring to the table.
I'm thinking, I don't know if I can go here, but I'm going to try to go here a little bit.
Yeah, do it.
I'm just thinking about like, I think Hannah's good at this, and but with Miley, I'm excited to see her grow and see what makes her excited, and her gifts and graces and all that. And but also like, I'm a little scared of the vulnerability of allowing her to fail at stuff. I want to like protect her from that, but that's part of what we all need the space to fail and figure out what we're not, and learn how to love ourselves.
That's a really good point.
I'm thinking about how do you parent in such a way where as your kid grows up, they do grow up in an environment where they've learned to fail. They've learned to know who they're not. They've learned how to embrace their gifts and graces, all that. And I think that's hard work.
Yeah,
but
it is.
allowing your kid to have that space and talk about it. I'm nervous and excited for that journey with Miley.
Yeah.
That she'll, and Phoebe, who will be able to figure that out.
Yeah.
Just thinking about Miley, because it's kind of feels like she's sort of actively some of that already.
Well, Phoebe's still sort of in the potato stage.
She's in the potato.
Where she's like pretty much is still like, vegetative. Like she just kind of lays around.
Excuse me, my daughter is more than a vegetable.
She is. She's like really cute though.
She's a very cute vegetable.
She's the cutest potato I've ever seen.
Yeah.
She's way more awake than she was like.
Oh yeah. Well, and I think on top of this, I would also say I think while we've sort of grounded this a little bit in our call story, I think it's also true to say this doesn't have to be as heavy as you figuring out what to do with your life.
Oh, 100%. No, it's a good point.
This isn't just what's your destiny that God is securely made just for you, that you're going to change the world if you can only unlock it. It's also just the really simple gifts and graces that we offer each and every day. Yeah. That don't tie to your job. It's just part of how God has made you, and you learning to love who you are. And offering that back out in the world.
One of the examples I think is actually the trunk or treat. And this is just on my mind because it's happening this weekend. This is not intended to be an ad, but people who really love Halloween, they get really into it, or really love just being creative or whatever. Yeah. It's literally just it's Margene. It's literally just the trunk of your car and some candy and some games.
That's right.
It's 2-3 hours on an afternoon, but it is offering something so lovely to your church family and to the community, all these little kids who want to come by and have a fun free afternoon. Yeah. I think it's a really good point. It's not always high stakes, right? Right. But it is always high yield. You were talking about letting Miley fail. Yesterday, I took Sammy to the playground, and we went to Mary Jo Peckham Park. And it was early enough that the older kids had not gotten out of school yet, and so there were just kids about Sammy's age or around. And I let him climb up the climbing rock wall, and then up the little metal ladder thing, all the way up to the super tall slide. I'm terrified the entire time. He did it 4 times. The last time I didn't stand right there. I just let him do it. Yeah. And I had been encouraging before. I was like, you're really strong. Look at you, watch your feet, that kind of thing. And he had done it really well. I did not think he would go down that big slide. That thing is 2 stories tall. That's not a joke. It's really tall. And he's 2.5. Okay. Yeah. I know he's tall, but he's 2.5. And I didn't think he'd go down the slide. He went down it. He loved it. And I could hear him laughing the whole way down. So the last time I let him go, and he climbed up the rock wall, no problem. He went to climb up the metal ladder, and he made it about halfway and just fully let go or something. He just totally fell flat on his back. And you know how when kids get real upset, it takes a minute before you hear them cry? Yeah. I am halfway climbing up that thing before he starts crying. Yeah. And he may have even gotten the wind knocked out of him because he hit the landing pretty hard. And I'm panicked. I'm thinking am I going to have to call 911? Is he, what if he has a concussion? I get up there and I'm snuggling him and I'm like, I'm so sorry, buddy. Are you okay? And he cried for maybe 30 seconds, but it probably wasn't even that long. And then immediately turned around and finished climbing and went down the slide. Yeah. And then we left because mommy couldn't take it anymore. Yeah. But I think that your point about parenting being a tricky act of letting them try and fail. I think that's true for everybody. And I think the strength that it takes doesn't come from us. So we started this sermon series in this idea of for the love of God. And it points me even back to this idea of for the love of enemy. So if we start with for the love of God, all of these other things are going to flow out of it. which may mean that we'll take our gifts and graces and try to use them for not just our loved ones or even just random strangers, but people we actively know and don't like and or have a hard time with, maybe don't like is too harsh. And wouldn't it just be like God to be like, I gave you this for the people that you don't want to hang out with. This is a gift and a grace that you can offer that like it maybe isn't something you super like isn't for the people you would super want it to be for. I'm just curious what that would end up looking like. I don't know. That was like an inside thought that needed to come outside. The way that this entire series sort of wraps around itself, the way it's all interconnected, I think is really, because I think that's how we're intended to be, is interconnected with one another. And in that is God who is three persons inviting us into that, whatever that kind of complicated, messy relationship and connection is. A holy mystery.
I agree, for sure.
It's good times.
I'm
gonna cut out that I just said it for like an hour. Well, thank you for joining us today, and we hope that you have found some inspiration and encouragement for yourself and for your family. If you'd like to get our weekly podcast delivered directly to you, you can subscribe or follow us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. For more information about Katy First and upcoming events for your family, you can visit our website at katyfirst.org. We have a lot of upcoming events. Mostly this weekend, we have Trunk or Treat, October 26th, 5 to 7.
Yeah, come on.
There's trunks, there's treats, there's a haunted house, there's miniature horses, there's pumpkins.
There's costume contests, dance competitions.
Hot dogs, playground.
It's going to
be so fun.
Whole pumpkin patch.
Yeah. Not partial. Only this area. Mostly, here's the thing we want you to know, that in the middle of your ordinary, messy life, whatever that looks like for you in this moment, that you are not alone, you are doing a good job, and you are so loved.
Yes. And on Sunday, come join us for the last week in this series, For the Love of the Church, and looking at a prayer that Jesus prayed in John chapter 17. So I think it's going to be a good exploration of that. It's actually just a little tie-in to October 31st. You know what else happens on October 31st? Do you know this? You know this.
Go ahead.
Are you Lutheran?
I'm not.
But you do know where I'm going?
I mean...
Old Reformation Day.
Yeah.
Also Halloween, but also Reformation Day.
Those little...
The little Martin Luther. But I'm going to kind of build on that idea of like, the church is always reforming. It's always growing. It's always moving forward.
Interesting.
And how love is that which drives us to be a church.
I like it.
So, yeah. And okay, I had to say one last thing because I was noticing this last week.
Say it.
I don't normally say this, but we're like somewhere like just shy of like 1 or 2 people in our subscriber list to like either, I can't even remember, it's like 100, maybe 200, 300. I don't know. It's not a lot. We don't have a lot of subscribers, but if you listen, subscribe.
Oh, nice.
Because we're just like 1 or 2 away. You can just get us over that little...
The little hump.
1
or 2 away from whatever the next goal
is. Yeah, I mean, we're not really...
No, but
I'd love for you to subscribe.
It's the gist.
I just want to see that turnover. You know, it's like passing 100,000 miles on your car. You just like to see the...
Yeah. Well, and I subscribe, and then you don't have to wonder, is there a new podcast this week?
Yeah.
It'll just pop up.
Yeah.
And
we might also be at podcast number 40. And if I'm missing... Are we?
This is today's 40.
Damn it. I was going to bring like Over the Hump and like a whole bunch of 40 jokes.
Oh, like Over the Hill.
Over the Hill. Yeah, Over the Hump. Over the Hill. What? I missed it. Bummer.
Yeah. Oh.
We have to wait till 50. We'll do some sort of celebratory.
It won't take long. By Christmas.
10 weeks. We got 10 weeks to get there.
New Year's.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, come see us. We'd love to see you on a Sunday morning. Otherwise, join us back here, wherever here is for you. Have a good week. Bye.